Well, I see people coming in. I think we'll be starting any minute now. We're officially 1 minute late, but that doesn't matter. It's good to see some faces as well. And yeah, you might have wondered what's with the balloons. Well, it happens to be my birthday today, so I thought I'll spice it up a bit. Anyway, it's good to see you all here. It would be better to physically meet, but well, you've heard the story before probably. Let's get this started. I'm gonna talk about something which might not be too familiar with developers, but I hope to spice to get you a bit happy about it. I'm going to talk about TestCafé and particularly web testing. So I see a number of faces. That's too bad that I don't see all of you because I wanted to ask a question. Who is already having a development process where you do unit testing? Well, that's a good thing. Is there also anybody who is already doing automated UI testing? No. Okay, well, one. Okay. So let's do that as well, because the thing with testing is obviously clear. Well, you do the unit tests, but that is not, well, it works obviously quite good for specific processes in your development. But UI testing is also something which can save you quite a bit of time. And for this, there are obviously several tools, and one of the tools that I'm going to talk about is TestCafé, and to be precisely, TestCafé Open Source. So let's first start about what is it. So TestCafé is a Node.js-based automated UI testing solution. And what that means is that it runs on Node.js. It also means that it runs on quite a bunch of operating systems, and it is supported with pretty much all the browsers. And as a result of that, you can actually test your web application simultaneously on a number of different browsers to see if everything is working as expected. As you can see, well, pretty much every operating system which supports Node.js can be used to perform the tests. It can also be run from within a Docker container. It can be used on a virtual machine, and you can use a specific workstation to perform the tests. All the browsers that support JavaScript, well, all the recent browsers are supported, so you can have like a great variety of browser tests at the same time. Why TestCafé? Well, as I mentioned, there are some other products. I will not precisely name them because I don't want to, well, you have to decide whether this is something for you or whether it isn't something for you. But most of the competitive testing software is quite complex to install. And one of the things which works really cool with TestCafé is that you don't need you don't need plugins for your browsers to run the tests, which is obviously quite cool because if there is a new browser popping up, it is highly likely that we can already use that with TestCafé. Another thing with the other UI testing tools is that you need to configure them, or you need to configure the browsers, the operating system, etc., to perform all the tests, which might be quite difficult to do. And then there is in most scenarios, a custom API that you need to program with scripts, and you have to learn the API, you have to learn the scripting language as well. And well, that takes time, which you obviously don't have. And then, well, this is obviously particularly for Dutch people, and I'm Dutch, so I can say it. It's expensive, and it often requires third-party support and extensions. Well, TestCafé is open source. That means that you can use it for free. We also have a commercial product, which is TestCafé Studio. I'll talk about that just like a minute at the end of this presentation, because yeah, I don't want to do a sales pitch, but I do want to show you some really cool features that come with TestCafé Open Source. And obviously, if you want to know more about TestCafé, we have a website for it. I'll show you that as well. And it also shows you some stuff about TestCafé Studio. Well, this is one of the beautiful things. TestCafé is installed within 30 seconds. That obviously depends on your network speed, because you need to download a couple of NPM packages. But in a nutshell, it runs within 30 seconds. As I mentioned before, we don't require you to install any plugins on the browsers that you want to use for testing. And that is because, yeah, our whole framework is based on JavaScript and Node.js. Yeah, the whole testing, what normally would be done within a plugin, is all it's all performed in JavaScript. So that's why we don't need plugins. And you don't need to configure anything. You can just start using it and it works. Well, we obviously do have an API, but the API is very simple and effective and a cool thing because everything is JavaScript. Also, the API is JavaScript. And we support all the modern features that come with the JavaScript platform. So we support the await, the classes, all the good stuff that come with the newest versions of JavaScript with all the bells and whistles. And you'll see that once I'll show up a couple of demos here. And well, as said, it is cross-browser, cross-platform, and cross-device without any issues. Even if a new browser is popping up and it has a decent JavaScript engine, you can use that browser from the start. It's 100% web-based. Well, that's what I mentioned a bit earlier, but that's why it is so easy to get started with, and you can create tests within minutes. And during this presentation, I hope that you'll see that it is quite easy to learn and it is quite easy to use. It uses stuff that you're already familiar with. So, enough on the slides. Let's do a couple of things here. First, I'm going to show you the website where you can find the instructions and the instructions and the download section for TestCafé. Well, if you want to install it on your machine, the only thing you need to install is npm install min-g TestCafé. And this is the 30-second install. Once this is installed, it is ready to use. We also have some extensive documentation, a blog section, and some other stuff. I'll touch base on that a bit later in the process. We have a video which shows you how to install it, and once it's done, you can use it. So let's do that. I've prepared a couple of things, and right here I have a command line tool, the command line box, where I will start up TestCafé, and I have opened up Visual Studio Code with a number of tests here. And this is the code that is used to run a test. And well, before we're going to start testing this, I'll first show you the page which we'd like to test. This is something that we have set up for specifically for TestCafé. It is a test page that you can use to see if you have configured as far as it goes and installed everything properly. This page is quite simple. I specify a name. I can tick a couple of things here, and next I'll hit submit. what we want to test, what we're going to test here is that the name that I've entered should match this response. If something goes wrong on the back end, or I don't know, whatever, something turns out to be not okay, this should not turn up. So if I go back, this is the page. It's also in the documentation to get started with. And here you can see that we are putting together a fixture which can run a number of tests. We will use this page, which is the page that I just showed you. And I'm going to fill out that form and I'm going to submit it as well. And what is very nice here is that we use just plain JavaScript, obviously the latest versions. So we'll have the Lambda expressions, and we have the async and await constructs as well. And this is something which is very nice because we take care of making sure that the response page has been loaded, and only then we'll continue. And so this is what we'll do here is we're going to type a text in a certain element, and this is just jQuery compliant selectors, CSS selectors. We have some other we've got some more methods as well. I'll touch on that a bit later. But what we'll do is we'll just type the text with John Doe. We'll tick a couple of boxes here. And next, we're going to submit it. We'll do some other stuff here as well. So we're going to submit. We're going to tick the submit button. And once the page has been submitted, we'll expect something to be not okay or it is okay. And in the end, we'll look up the DOM of the thank you page, and this John Doe should obviously be the same as the stuff that has been entered here. You see, so this is the test that we'll do. And if I now want to run this test, I'll switch over to my command line. I'll just start up TestCafé. I want to test it on Chrome. And I'm going to run this script. What will happen now, I have to move that screen because for some reason the test browser screen is always opening up on a different screen as the one that I'm presenting on. And what you see here is that it actually has done everything that I scripted out. So let me do that again because you probably didn't see it too well. I'll make sure I'll drag the screen on time in there. So here you see TestCafé, and if you take a look at it really quick, you'll see that everything is done as I said in the script, and it says that the test has passed. If I would make something up here to make the test fail and remove this one, that will obviously fail the test because I'm inserting John Doe and I'm testing for John Doe. And if I do it again, you can also see why how the failed test would look like. And the beautiful thing here is that you can actually execute this in your build process as well. So if you would like to do the UI test in your build process, it's just a matter of giving that command. And what you see now here is that it is already, you saw it on the bottom, it mentioned that it has failed. Yeah, so what you'll see here is it failed on this line because it was expecting John Doe, but I obviously made the test fail by removing that E. So this is in a simple nutshell how end-to-end testing works with TestCafé. All right, so this was quite a simple thing because we have a very nice API which works with JavaScript. You can take this a step further. And I have set up a number of things here. And before I'm going to talk about this next test, I've also set up a small test application, which I have already started up. this is the application. And it's quite simple. I mean, you can put a message in here and you can respond on it if you are logged on. So if I would log in, I've pre-configured a number of users here, the admin localhost, and it's got a very secret password, which I will reveal in a number of minutes here. And once I'm logged on, I can actually enter another post, and I can set a post date as well. Then, because I'm logged in, so let me log out again because I created another one. And this one has a slightly different password, like this. If I'm logged in, I can also put a reply in here. Yeah, but that is only once I'm logged in. So I have 2 users, and I've got the anonymous visitor, and I want to test this whole process, because if I make a reply here as done at localhost, it will not be put in automatically. No, we have to log out again. We have to log in again as admin, and we have to approve it. And I mean, this is just a very small test application, but it will show you a number of features here. So if I would go to this page, I'll see that there is my response. There was another response as well. If I turn it on, it will be active. And if I now log out, it's done. So there are a couple of things that you see here that we can actually test very nicely with TestCafé. And to do that, I have set up another test. So first, I would like to be logging in to see if that works. And for that, I am testing on this page. This was the page that I have just been showing. So it's going to be this one. I have, let me put it a bit to the side. I have put up the input email and the input password. I hit the submit button, and once I'm logged in, I am expecting, if I go back to the home page, that my login name would appear here. As you can see, the test password is quite simple, but it is pretty much, well, it is secure according to the rules. So let's see if I can log in on this website. And for this, I will do TestCafé. I'll run it on Chrome. And I will say login. I'll drag this test window quite fast to the presentation screen once it opens up. There we go. And as you can see, it will log in. And the test has passed because once I'm logged in, it would be on the right corner. So this is another test that you can do. And I mean, let's face it, it's not too difficult to grasp, probably. And the cool thing is that, I mean, if the site is quite busy or it is not that fast, I mean, we don't know once the validation has been passed. The cool thing is, because we are using these await constructs, TestCafé will actually wait until the submit action has been processed and the response page shows up. So there will eventually be a timeout, but I mean, 99% of the cases, TestCafé will actually wait for the return page to show up. You don't need to configure timeouts, set like waits, etc., etc. TestCafé takes care of that by itself. All right, so now I'm going to improve this test because what I want to do now, I actually want to test whether I can put up a post. And for this, I have already set up some similar stuff. So first I will log in. I will use the credentials for the administrator. I will get that page. Let me show you again how that works. So let me quickly log in again as admin. Oh, at localhost. And use the super secret password. Oh, did I do it wrong? Yeah, I did do it wrong. Admin at localhost. 1, 2, 3, and there we go. I'm going to type something in here. Yeah, that's what's happening here. I'm going to type in something here. I'm going to set a post date of today, and I'm going to hit that post button. So this is, yeah, just querying the DOM and finding those elements. And what is quite nice is if I make this a bit smaller so we can actually see this. So what is quite nice is that these are third-party controls, in this case DevExpress, but I mean it doesn't really matter. So these are not standard input controls, but still what you'll see is that it works. And so if I now open up my console again, where was the console? That was right here. I can now test this second one, TestCafé Chrome, and I'm gonna do 02 in this case. And this will actually be stored in the backend database. So if I would open up my test screen again, you'll see that this feed, that there will be a second post here. Here is the test screen. And again, this test has passed. So it logged in as an administrator. It did do a post. And if I check my window here and I go back to the home page, what we'll see is that there is a second post. Again, this is all JavaScript, and there might be a couple of things here. So this is actually preparing the test. And now we're putting some expectations in here to make sure that the test passed. And what you see is that we use the selector method, which uses just ordinary jQuery kind of selectors, together with a number of extension methods that we created in the API to make even fine-grained selections on the element that we want to check. And if it contains something else, then it's all fine. So we can also take this a step further as well, and I'll show you that as well. So what I'm going to do now is that we will test whether we can put in a post, and we can place a comment, and afterwards the administrator logs in again, and it will approve that comment. And so what you'll see is that we now use the other one. So let me scroll all the way up. So first we are logging in as an administrator. We're going to put up another post. Then we are going to log in as a user, another user, and we're going to make a comment on this. And the last step of this fixture is that we will log in as an administrator again, and we will actually approve that comment. So let's run this one as well, and then we're going to see how we can. There are a couple of things in the test that we want to that we might want to change, because there are a couple of things which are taking up a bit of time here and a bit of extra code, which we can do easier. So let me run this test. I'll see if I can drag the window in, because there is some more things happening here. So here we are with the test. First, we log on as an administrator. Next, we're going to make another comment here. We are now going to put a reaction in. We're going to log in as an administrator again. And we're going to activate that. What you see is that everything is projected nicely in the console. Everything that has been done. And those 3 tests have passed. There are obviously a couple of things here that we might want to fine-tune a bit, because there is some stuff here which we see quite a bunch of times. We're going to log in. In this case, we're going to log in as Don, and again, we're going to log in as an administrator. So this is something which brings us to hooks. And the hooks are something which come with the API of TestCafé that allow you to set up certain things that are used quite frequently in all the tests that you run. And so on a fixture, we can execute something before every test. We can also run something after every test. And then within a test, we also have a before and an after event, pretty much. And so if you have this fixture and you have a number of tests which don't have these events, they will be handled with these events. But if you have a specific test that needs to do something else, you can use these ones on a test level base. So this is something to make it a bit easier. And how does this look? Well, for instance, we have a fixture here, and the fixture has a before each. The fixture takes a context. In this case, it's going to be my name. And if I run the test, I can still access that context and that login name, which I defined here, and I can do something with it. And so this means that you can actually set up a number of things, and you don't need to have all those repetitive tasks coded out, but you can actually reuse it like you do with normal coding as well. And here we have another test. So in this case, we are doing the before, and we can use the same principle here. So there is a context which will store this. And the cool thing is that this context stores a bit more things, which you'll see a bit later. So this hook is, this test is something I can actually run. So if I would go up to my console and run this test, what you'll see is TestCafé. This was going to be 05. It will actually pass. It will open up a browser, but it will not like replay any scripts because we didn't code it in. But it was just testing that test context, and as you can see, it passed. So a very simple way on showing how this works. All right, so there were a couple of more things here. Let me see, I was doing on this one. So here we can do the same. And so if you go back to the test application that I put together, I can do something here in the before each, and I can just log myself in as an administrator. You see? So before this test is being executed, it will still log me in as an admin, and it will do something here. So now I will post another test here. So if I would run this one, and if I have more tests in this same fixture, they will all run by first logging in as an administrator. And this is, let me see, this was 09. I will bring the browser window back in here. we go. And as you can see, it will still log me in. And next, it will still do another post here. So with this, you can do quite some effective things to reduce the amount of code in all your tests. And in case something changes, it's also obviously clear that this works. That you can faster make changes to the test as well. And as you saw in the complicated test that I put up here, so we were first logging in as an admin, then we were logging in as a normal user, and then we were logging in as an admin as well. We can take that actually a step further, which brings us to something which is called roles. So what you see here is that I am setting up a number of roles, and those roles are executing those login features. You see, so I have a regular user, which is done, and I've got an admin user, which is this one. And that role will be executed on this page. So I could now reduce actually the test that I've done already by doing the following. So here I can execute that use role, which will do the same. And I could actually create another test with a before event, which will use the role regular user. And so here you have a better example of how this works. So in this case, I have this fixture, and I run a test where I will first use the role admin user. I can now execute the test to insert a new post. Next, I run a test which will log me in as a regular user, and I can comment. And well, I could actually insert like a similar test as this one, which will insert, which will approve that comment that this one just did. And then I could actually do something as an anonymous user. So if I would be an anonymous user, so what you see is that TestCafé keeps those environments pretty much. It will use that, and it will switch over quite fast to set up those tests with different users and different roles. So this is a very powerful feature which will allow you to test your application with different users, different security levels, etc. So one of the other things that you can use to set it up even cooler is that you can use a page model. And for this, I mean, this page model will have a number of properties, and these things you have already been checking out in this particular test. So I have an input email. So if I go back here, you'll have the input email, the input password, and the login submit button. And let me get that page model here. So I am pretty much storing those as properties. And if I would now do a login test here, I can import that page model, and I can use those type text. I can replace this one with those properties. So also for this, this will basically log me in as an administrator, and it will actually run the test. So let me show you that, because that is a simple test. Let me run that one. So this pretty much logs me in as an administrator, and it will check whether admin was on the top side. So this was one of the tests that I did in the beginning. And that was the test window. And as you can see, this did the same as one of the first tests, with the exception that we have abstracted away a couple of things. So in case the layout may change on the page during the process, or those fields are tending to change, the names or the selectors are going to change because the look and feel changed, you can use a page model to set up a number of things to make it easier to maintain your tests as well. Well, yeah, with this, there are a couple of things that I'm gonna skip over. Oh well, I'm gonna go over quite quickly because there were a couple of things for this. I'm gonna open up this this long test because you saw that there were a couple of selector methods here being used. You see the env0 in this case, and there is quite an extensive list. Let me show that one. So here we have a number of filter methods that you can use to select certain elements. Here are some more, so you can check whether something exists. And if you want to know more about this, I'm going to check out the TestCafé website here, because as I mentioned, we have quite a number of documentation sections on how to do certain things. So we have the guides. One of the very cool things is that we have recipes as well, which describe how to test certain functionality in your for your application. So the guides particularly have a very nice set of things. Also, how to use TestCafé in continuous integration, how to extend TestCafé with plugins and reporter plugins, etc. And a number of actions that you can perform. This is one of the actions that we already used. Is if I go to this one, we have the click, and we have the navigate to. So what you see is that we have a number of other actions. We have actions as set for clicking, typing text was another example. Navigating we've done already, but we can even use uploading files, performing drag and drop. So this is quite an extensive list, and you can take screenshots and video during your tests. The videos, I do have to say, they don't work on all browsers, but on Chrome, for instance, you can take a video. And so this is quite a big set of functions that you can use to set up your tests. I think if I check this out, yeah, we're quite on schedule actually. One of the things that I do wanna point out, I'm gonna point it out really quickly because, as I said, I don't wanna sell you anything. This is free to use. This is also free to use in your own projects. It might happen that you have a test department and those people are not really into setting up these tests, because these tests are all script-based, JavaScript-based. But some testers are not really developers, so they don't want to do all this stuff. We have another product which is called TestCafé Studio. I'll show you that really short. Because one of the really cool things, this is TestCafé Studio, and this is a visual way of building those tests. So the way, I'll quickly show you how this works. If I go to the example page again, the first test that I showed you, and I'll switch over here, you can enter a URL. I'm gonna use the test page that we put up. And I can now start recording a test. And this is something, a visual, really powerful visual screen recorder that will open up a browser. And it will pretty much allow you to point and shoot. So if I put my name in here, it is now recording whatever I do, you see? I scroll down a bit and hit the submit button. And what you already noticed is that there is a whole bunch of events happening here. As soon as I click something, you can set up this this complete test visually. And this is something which comes with TestCafé Studio. So if I now stop the record, I could actually use a number of assertions. So I could actually check if I would add an assertion here. I can use a target element to pick, but I close down the browser, which is not the smartest way to do. Anyway, you can actually do the stuff that I did by code in a visual way. And in the end, you can convert this to JavaScript, and it will create a similar test as we did. The only thing I should warn you about, you can't reverse this JavaScript into the visual representation, because yeah, that is highly that's very difficult to do. But you can actually generate these JavaScripts, put it on TestCafé, and run the test without any problems. So this is in a nutshell what we also have, and for this I would download TestCafé Studio as well and evaluate it and see whether it suits your needs. Anyway, so with this, I have pretty much shown you a brief introduction with some advanced testing scenarios that you can do with TestCafé. And I think that it would be good to open up the thank you page and see if there are any questions that I might be able to answer for you. For that, you can raise your hand, you can use the chat box, but you can also enable your audio and ask the question by voice. I don't see any questions. Oh, yes, I see. Does TestCafé integrate with Browser Stack? Let me have my chat box open. Yes, as a matter of fact, that's a good question. It does. And I can tell you that BrowserStack is organizing a conference somewhere later this year. And we're actually talking with the guys from BrowserStack to do a presentation on their virtual conference as well. Yes, we have support for that. I see another question here coming up. Does it work with a BDD tool, Cucumber, SpecFlow, etc.? Oh, yes, it integrates. Well, somebody else answered it already. Yeah, it integrates with BrowserStack. Let me get back to the other question. Well, let me open up the documentation page again, because we have quite some. I'm not completely familiar with your tools, but let us see if there is something here. So we have continuous integration with these tools, and I will definitely ask our team. If you ping me after the conversation, the app guy, I'll get that answered for you. I don't know right now, but I can find it out. So, are there any other questions here? Let me see. Can it run silently? Yes, that's a good question. We support Chrome headless as well. So if there are any other browsers that support headless running, you can use that. And Chrome headless, that runs for sure. So yes. But for the other ones, that obviously depends on if they support headless mode. And what most other people do is that they will have a virtual machine or something that will run that stuff without even seeing it. But obviously, yeah, it needs a browser to execute that stuff on. But Chrome headless works. Yeah. How would you compare a TestCafé to Cypress? All right. Well, okay. I didn't want to like do a comparison, but obviously, yeah, you want me to well, it's obviously you want to know. I think there are two things that are really benefiting over Cypress, and that is the first one is we don't need any plugins on any browsers whatsoever. It is just running and it works. We don't use WebDriver. We don't have any configuration issues for that. And I would say, but this is something that we hear a lot from experienced testers, that the API that we provide with TestCafé is really powerful, yet really simple. And if you look around on Twitter, you'll see messages like, I have been trying to set up this test, which was quite complicated. I have been spending days to get it to run on Cypress. I decided to go on to test it on TestCafé, and I got it up and running in 10 minutes. But that is something that you have to experience yourself. Let me see. Cypress would be the closest competitor. Yeah, true. Any other questions here?
Was there a reason that you did your demos in JavaScript rather than TypeScript? So is there any sort of pros?
That is a good question. No, there was no particular reason that I did it in JavaScript, but I think, yeah, JavaScript is probably the most used script around the world,
Sure.
whether you like it or hate it. So yeah, that's why we decided, that's why I decided to do it in JavaScript. This is actually nice to mention. Yes, you can put your scripts into TypeScript as well, if you prefer that. That's no problem.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you, Ross. All right. Well, if there are any more, if there aren't any more questions, I would like to thank you for your attention. If you want to know more, take a note of my contact details, which is donw@devexpress.com. You can reach me by Twitter at donwibier. That's how you say my name. And obviously, you can reach out to our TestCafé team directly as well through the website, and they'll know even more as I do. But again, yeah, I would like to thank you for your attention here. And I'm gonna celebrate my birthday for the rest of the day.